When I got my first camera around 10 years ago, I remember being overwhelmingly confused with the number of different buttons and modes that it had, and which to use and when. I just wanted to take nice pictures, and while my second-hand Canon 450D did that, I just couldn't immediately wrap my brain around all the different buttons at my fingertips. It all seemed confusing and beyond my little brain. I remember poring over digital photography school articles on the web, trying to teach myself as much as I possibly could about my new camera, and how to get professional looking pictures with it. One of the first tips I picked up on was back button focusing. Can't really remember where I picked it up from. I think I probably picked it up online, but I remember feeling really smug about the fact that I'd found this really cool professional technique, and I managed to hack my camera in order to do it. It's a technique I still use to this day. If you're not familiar yet with back button focusing, it's simply a way to separate the actions of the shutter and the focus, which is usually combined together using the shutter button itself. Most of us start out using the shutter button to both set autofocus and then to take the picture. It's a pretty simple action that involves a half press of the shutter button to focus and then holding that position until you're ready to fully depress the button and take the shot. With back button focusing, basically what you're doing is you're separating the focus and the shutter press buttons, and you're moving that button to a designated button on the back of the camera. Usually on high-end cameras this is denoted by the button AF on, but it can be assigned to any button. You can kind of go crazy. I mean, you've got to use it in the field, but you know what I mean. When people ask me how I set my cameras up, one of the first things I tell them is that I have my AF on button set. What this does, it allows me greater control when focusing and lets me press and hold the shutter button down to burst. It sounds really silly, but I've lost count of the number of times back in the day when I would accidentally fire off shots when I was only trying to focus. Basics aside, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. For me, when shooting sports, there are three basics that I work to. The first of these is the Canon autofocus cases. Put simply, cases are Canon's predetermined custom settings for different sports situations, and when activated with AI servo, it can change how your camera responds to the action that you see through the lens. Taken from the Canon's website itself, AI servo mode contains three adjustable parameters that affects how the AF system behaves. Tracking sensitivity, determining how quickly the camera will focus on a new subject. Acceleration and deceleration tracking accounts for the subjects moving from a constant to an erratic pace. And AF point auto switching, which determines how fast the autofocus points switch from one point to another when tracking a subject. Next up is the number of focus points that you want to use and how they're grouped. No one said photography was easy, right? My Canon 7D Mark II and my 5D Mark III both share the same autofocus system, so I've set this up pretty much identically on both cameras. The Canon 7D Mark II boasts 65 focus points, and coming from a DSLR that only had 9, I remember it being quite a jump up in options. I wouldn't say in the last few years that I've regularly used all 65, but I definitely use way more than 9, so it's been worth it. There's a lot of options to go for here, but the main ones that I use are 8-point expansion and large zone AF. For the majority of the time I use 8-point expansion group focus. This basically allows me to predetermine a focus point on that 65-point grid that I can then train my subject on. So a good example of this is dive starts for triathlon. I'll often be laid on my front on the pontoon edge, and I'll assign a AF point kind of top corner, top right, top left, depending on what side of the pontoon I am. And that's trained on the lead swimmer, who's the closest swimmer to me, as they dive in. Sounds really easy, but it isn't. There's been a lot of times when I've nearly fallen in because the pontoon kicks. But by training that focus point and being able to pre-select that focus point, it's a lot easier for me. In recent months, I've been experimenting with large zone AF, particularly when shooting netball. I found this lets me follow the fast-moving action while allowing me to focus quickly on the subject that I want. It's not something I've really tried yet with triathlon and other sports, but it's something that I will be experimenting later on in the year. The final point I'll make about focusing is this. You can pick any number of settings and focus point options when shooting sports, but it really adds up to nothing if you're not thinking through your shots first. Having an idea of the shot you want, the image that you want in your head before you lift the camera up to your eye is singularly the most important thing to create great images. I've talked about luck and intention before on this channel, but I hugely believe that having an idea of what you want to shoot before you lift your camera up to your eye is half the battle, if not 75% of the battle in sports photography. When you have an idea in mind, it's way easier to be able to pre-select your focus points and then tell the camera how quickly you want them to respond to the action that's happening in front of you. A lot's changed in how I focus now when I'm working compared to how I did in the early days. But the biggest tip I can give you is to keep it simple. Photography is about creating images that you love, not fiddling with a million different camera settings, and if you're too busy changing focus points and modes, you're going to miss the shot. Relax, enjoy it, and have fun. Hi guys, don't forget that my presets are still on sale at the moment. You can go and get them from the link down below in the description. If you haven't already got them, it's definitely worthwhile checking them out because they're pretty good, I think. Otherwise I wouldn't have put them on sale. Thank you to those who've already bought it. I've had a few queries about mobile presets as well, which I'm going to look into and sort. But if you haven't already, hit the link below for that and the How to Make Money from Sports Photography course notifications, and we'll see you again very soon.